How are you?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our last meeting of this year of the Sturbridge Historical Society. Once again, I'd like to thank the Public House for providing the space and a few low-calorie refreshments in the back. I hope you all enjoyed some. There may be some left at the end. Next year, 2025, we have some programs lined up. January 23rd, our own Bob Arnold will be presenting a program on a trip his family took in 1927 in a Model A across the country. And he took, this is his grandfather, and it's totally, took pictures the whole way. So that should be a pretty interesting program. You figure 1927, there weren't many paved roads out west, and there were still Indians alive that probably fought with Custer, so it must have been a great trip. February 27th, Rich Paradise will present a program on covered bridges of Massachusetts. He did a great program on stone walls, which was a big hit, so I'm looking forward to that one. March 27th, Bill Reed, who works for the Last Green Valley, will be doing a program called Notables and Notorious. Characters from the Last Green Valley, which is eastern Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and parts, eastern Connecticut, and Rhode Island, and parts of Massachusetts. It should be interesting. The good guys and the bad guys from that area. April 24th, I will be presenting a program on the Revolutionary War. It is the 250th anniversary of that event. So I'll just do an overview of the war and make some connections with Sturbridge's participation in it. May 22nd, the last program, Wally Hearsey will present a program on the 1938 Sturbridge celebration of their 200th birthday. There was a lot of photography. I think there's some film footage, but it was they celebrated the 200th anniversary here in Sturbridge. And that's 1938. That's before the village even came here, so it must have been a really exciting and local celebration. I've seen some stills from it. With that, tonight, thanks for coming out on this rainy day, first one in a month and a half. So, tonight we present a program, Doug Lyon and Mike Ferrand, on the John Hinds pottery / kiln site in Holland, Massachusetts. I never knew that existed up until about 2 months ago. Old Sturbridge Village has a pottery kiln in the museum. It was moved from Goshen, Connecticut. This one, so that's where that one came from. This program, evidently there's one only about 8 or 10 miles away in Holland. So they will talk about that. I guess that when it was discovered, there was an archaeology dig participated with the Old Sturbridge Village, and they uncovered quite a few things. Well, they say, I don't know that much about it. We're going to learn tonight about the John Hinds pottery kiln in Holland, Massachusetts. So Doug Lyon and Mike Ferrand, thank you. It's up to you.
Yeah, might be a good idea. Sort of a rowdy crowd.
Yeah. Right talking to witness. We're in the back row and I can't hear.
I'm Doug, and this is my friend Mike Foran.
Use the mic, please.
Okay. This mic or that? Sorry.
Get used to that.
Yeah, John Hinds was a 18th century potter, previously unknown, and we came across his site looking for bottles in the woods, so as to not get chased away from cellar holes when we were doing that. But we dig around this cellar hole and found pottery. Of course, I don't know pottery from biscuits, or brownies actually. So we found them. Found some flat pieces of clay, of fired clay, that were a mystery, and took it to a friend of mine who was a curator at the village, and he took it to John Worrell, who was the archaeologist there at the time, and he identified it as kiln furniture, which is something that you would only find in a kiln. It doesn't look like much. I've got better pictures up there, but it still doesn't look like much. And yet I think it's one of the more important pieces that we found, because it identified the site as a kiln site. So John Worrell in Sturbridge Village came out, and I think it was 4 seasons.
3 seasons.
3 seasons that we dug. And you'll see here, I don't know what year this is, but
That's 84, I think.
84? But this was a group. This is John Worrell, Greg Hill, me, Charlie Pelletier, and I don't know the rest of the guys. But I'm going to go over here and sit down so I can change the slides. This is John Worrell. John recently passed away, and it's cause for reflection on John as a person, as an archaeologist, and I couldn't help but honor him for this. Here's John Hinds the potter. He was born, according to French-Indian war records, in 1714. According to his marriage record, he was from Cambridge, Massachusetts. In 1750 was his first deed in Holland. He was married in South Woodstock. He was living in South Woodstock at the time. His first deed in Holland, moving into Holland, described him as a potter. Now that's significant because John Worrell said that we would probably never see him listed on paper as a potter, because people of the time, they were farmers. Thank you. Everybody was a farmer. If they did something on the side, like a sawmill or potting or blacksmithing, you would still see them listed as a farmer. That was just the other thing was just an avocation. Sort of like today, if somebody asked you what you did, you would give your occupation. Now, if you had a snowplow and you did plowing on the weekends or certain times, that's just sort of an avocation. That's a side hustle, I think they call it now. But in the day, everybody would be a farmer, maybe a yeoman. But we found in the Springfield Registry of Deeds, the very first deed, I think, for John Hinds, listed him as a potter, and that was quite remarkable. So he was a potter, and in 1754, 1763, he was in the French-Indian War with his son, his oldest son. There are various deeds of him that lists him as a potter between 1750 and 1789. Now, there are deeds before that in South Woodstock, but I guess Connecticut doesn't list your occupation. Several mentions of him in Lumbering's History of Holland. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And then he died, until recently, I thought he died in 1793, because the deeds, in 1793, there's a deed that mentions John Hinds recently deceased and his widow, Judith, in the 1793, and the last mention of him in Lovering is about 1793. And then recently, I found that there are town records online of Holland that listed him and his wife Judith and a child, which I think actually is probably his oldest daughter or one of his daughters, as paupers as late as 1815. And I'm thinking that maybe the reason there are no death records, no burial, because he was a pauper, and he had a pauper's grave. Now, this is his geographical context, and you'll see that we use this a little better pointer. Never mind. Sturbridge, and that's where the Hinds site is. Herbie Brooks was over here in Goshen. Much later, James Moore was up in Brimfield. No, there it is. Again later, the only one that's contemporary to him is this unknown potter in the Yale University Forest in West Woodstock, Connecticut. And that's got to be nearby where Hinds lived in South Woodstock. So I'm wondering if there isn't a connection. That's to be found out. Okay, here's the map of Holland from Lovering's History of Holland. If you're not familiar with that book and you're interested in Holland, that's a good book. And it's available online. Which reminds me, I've got a list of resources that are available. Will you pass them out? You can actually read this online. So this is the area where John Hinds pottery, the Hinds site was. And what I've done is highlighted the routes that he could take to market. Of course, down this way is South Woodstock, or Woodstock now. And up here would be Brimfield, Wales, Sturbridge. Don't have any indication or record where he would market his wares. John Worrell had a theory that there were potters who would make pottery for other potters that the other potters would then sell. I think he called it jobbing, potters. Okay, there are other nearby potters. Bugby in Woodstock, Connecticut. He's much later. And Hinds was working in Holland between 1750 and 1793. I don't see any indication that he's working as a potter after 1793. So that's his range, is 1750 to 1793. Moore is later. Herbie Brooks is later. There's the Charlestown potters. Hinds was from Cambridge. Charlestown, near Boston, was a large source of pottery. And the thinking is that, did he learn his pottery there? And of course, there's Charlestown expectorates. I'm reading a book. I just picked this up on Charlestown potters from Justin Thomas, and he makes a strong case for Charlestown ceramics ending up in Maine and other places, with a wide circulation. And then, okay, this is the dig. That's Mike in the upper left. Mike and Greg Hill over on the right, Charlie and somebody else, maybe Mike, and then over on the left is me and my daughter. She's quite older now. There's Mike again on the left. And to swap these things. But there's Mike and Jane and Greg again. Jane, she was the queen of the table. She was a delightful person. But she was taking care of the.
What's on the table?
Oh, pottery.
Is she dug up?
No. She's the one that when you find the pottery, you bring it to her table, and then she bags it and tags it. And then.
You found all that?
Oh, we as a group, yes, we found all that and more.
Wow.
Well, some of this, like this right here, somebody's coffee cup.
Oh yeah.
I think this over here, they look like probably they had water in them.
Mm-hmm.
Most of this other stuff are a bunch of shirts all piled up.
Yeah.
There were boxes and boxes and boxes of shirts, pottery shirts, and things that we took out of there that Old Sturbridge Village has somewhere in storage.
We never found anything whole. The kiln furniture is the most whole things that we found. But everything that we found, it's from a waster pile, and it discards, it's broken. And we try to guess what it was, and go from there. Now on the left-hand side, they're setting up a grid. That's the kiln furniture. It's the kiln pad, the base, and we're setting it to dry. And you'll see a drawing later. Over on the right is a post hole. You can see down, and you'll see also that they used pottery to shore up the post. And okay, there's the kiln base, and it's remarkable in its own right. Now here's that same kiln base drawn out, and you'll see that we can determine the wall of the kiln from the way that the heat altered the rocks. Heat would like it does with clay, would turn it red, and so we were able to determine the wall, and then where the firebox is, the loading door. Much like other kilns, the one at the top left is from Sturbridge Village. That's the what's his name?
Brooks.
Herbert Brooks, yes. This was James Moore over in Brimfield. This was the one in Goshen. This is John Hinds. And this is that anonymous kiln in Woodstock, Connecticut. It's also round. It's a little more round, I think, than the Hinds site. But again, it's similar enough to make me wonder if there isn't a connection. Now this is a modern picture of the kiln base taken just, I guess this month. And if you had time to really study the detail between the two, there's a lot of similarities and differences with stones migrating. Okay, artifacts. The kind of artifacts that we found, kiln furniture again, and then there's kitchenware, and this is pottery that you'd use in the kitchen for storage, for mixing, for baking, that sort of thing. And then there's tableware, things like plates, pans, cups, mugs, those sort of things. And it's interesting, the things that we didn't find. We didn't find any tiles or bedpans. Well, I don't know if we found any bedpans. Again, everything is broken. So if we found a bedpan, you wouldn't know. A chamber pot, you wouldn't know. But there were no flower pots that we could identify, and no pipes, water or smoking. And that's significant because those things come at the end of the redware phase, when they're transferring to things like tinware, stoneware, other more durable, reliable items. It was left to the redware potters to make flower pots, and you could make a lot of flower pots. And I guess it didn't necessarily take too much work. Pipes are usually white clay pipes, but there were some red clay pipes, redware clay pipes. We didn't find any whiteware or redware, which I assume meant that he wasn't smoking. Because otherwise you would find, how many have dug in your yard and found clay pipes? Yeah, they're just all over the place, because people smoked and smoked. So here's some samples. Most of these I stole from the Sturbridge Village website. Don't tell them that, but because we don't have anything that's complete, I just wanted to give you a sense of what these things would have looked like when they were whole. We've got like a jug, a cup, some of the sort of containers. Now this is a piece of modern kiln furniture. And here's a couple of plates that have slipware. We'll talk about slipware in a minute. But and of course another piece of kiln furniture from Hinds.
Could you define kiln furniture?
Excuse me?
Could you define kiln furniture? What do
Oh,
mean
yes.
when you say that?
Yeah, let me do this. Oh, shoot.
To hold up the kiln shells, right?
Separate pieces, then we'll stick together.
But for the shells.
Sometimes it's
There's
not.
Amy
Okay.
We have some samples of kiln furniture up here for you to look at.
What is it?
I still don't understand what it is.
Yeah, you know it's funny.
Okay.
Yeah, kiln furniture is, sometimes think, does that mean it's like a chaise lounge and that you could use in a kiln and relax and live? But no, they're also known as saggers or supports, shelves. But they're basically what you stack use to stack your pottery on. You might have we'll see some.
Yeah, go back to the other slide. This
Oh, yeah.
particular one is used a lot of times on plates. It goes between the plates to separate them so that the heat can get between them and that they don't touch, because as soon as they touch, they're ruined because the glaze will stick together. And you put a plate, you put one of these, you put another one, and we've got a couple of pieces of that. There are points on the end of this so that you can put the plate and it rests just on these 3 points. There's also flat stackers for like big bowls and stuff. You put a set of bowls down, you put the stackers on, you put another layer of bowls or something on top of them. You can see on the end there where something was on this and the glaze ran off it and onto this stacker. It's just pieces of clay shaped differently to stack, yeah, spacers. to allow the heat to get between the pieces as it's being fired, so that it can heat evenly. And different types of kiln furniture work for different vessels.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But anything could have been kiln furniture, anything that separates the pottery or holds it upright. You'll see that Herbie Brooks and John Hinds both used pressed clay that left fingerprints. It could be broken sherds, flat kiln furniture, shelves. The cockspur, that's that thing there, that's called a cockspur. And this thing over here, we weren't sure what it was called, couldn't quite remember. But it's something like ox yolks or ox eyes. We got a picture of it. Here's the flat kiln furniture. This is one of the pieces that tipped us off that it was a kiln. Now here's what's called a ox something. You see the way it's curved over here. You figure you've got, oh, I wish I had, but you got a pot turned upside down, and it's round on the bottom, and you've got two next to each other. So you put something like this in between them, and the roundness fits in between them, and the top of it, this is the top of the furniture, and you see where, you know, you put another pot that's been glazed on the inside, and the glaze runs down, and it, thank you. Here's another picture of those types of kiln furniture. You see again, it's on either side. It's curved and to set between the pots. Oh, and here's one that you can, on the right hand side, you can see better the fingerprints of John Hinds. Probably John Hinds. We don't know that he had any workers. And here the cockspur. Here's the sample. In the bottom is the modern sort of cockspur, and then the upper ones are from John Hinds. And the type of products that we found: cups, bowls, milk pans, plates, crocks, charcoal, and the special kind, it's a black incised pottery. It's thin, its insides, it's carved into. It's black, could be because it was overfired, could be that he wanted it to be black. It's thin, like a saucer, like a teacup. And we speculate maybe that was experimental. Maybe he's trying to duplicate stoneware or porcelain, something like that. We didn't find any flower pots, any pipes, any tile. Now, decoration. Hinds' decorations are simple and modest, unlike newer or preserved decorations. People tended to keep people tended to keep what looks nice, what looks good, what has their name on it. You know, if you have a piece that's handed down to you that has your great grandfather's name on it, you tend to keep that. And those are more abundant. You find those more, and you know, the inclination is that, you know, all the pottery back then was like that. Well, it wasn't. The pottery, redware pottery is more like Tupperware. You know, who pays attention to Tupperware? I mean, you probably got a kitchen cabinet full of Tupperware without lids. Maybe you have lids without Tupperware. But you know, if well, they wouldn't break, but if they got damaged somehow or lost, you wouldn't think about it. You just go out and buy some more. They're cheap, abundant. Redware was cheap and abundant. So, you know, you break a piece, okay, it's not like your family china. It's not like really expensive stuff. You just get some more. It's cheap. But the newer stuff, the stuff that's more colorful and designed, that wasn't John Hinds. What we found anyhow, and again, we're looking at his trash pile. He used color, he used slipware, and the way his bases and rims were shaped, and this incising. Now here's a picture of the color. Most of his work is black or brown, maybe because it was overfired. We weren't sure about the composition. I know there is, I think, what was it, iron?
For black?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you can put iron oxide, I think it is. So everything is really black or brown. Yellow, which, you know, we have some of, it can be from natural yellow clay, manganese oxide. If it's red, it's probably neutral or natural. Here's some shapes. The base, you can see the way over here, that silhouette, the curve, it's may even be the same piece. You see the way the base stick comes out a little bit there. And here's another piece that's it's slipware. We'll see that in a minute. Here's some other base pictures, and that one at the bottom left is actually a rim. Oh, and speaking of rims, you can see where he's, while it's turning, he used some, I don't know if this is, you know, something he made, but you know, you can see where it's scraped, the rim piece is scraped. Here's another rim. Here's several pieces of rim that were sort of put back together. You see rims up here. Oh, here's the handles. Now he was a contemporary of George Washington. I don't know if that quarter was something that he knew about, but just to give you a sense of size, anyhow. And a slip decoration. This is another one of the really interesting things. Slip is a white, watery clay that turns yellow when it's fired. Now, the left-hand side, you see where the clay was fired, and then slip was applied. This was, and then it was fired again to turn it yellow. And that was a piece that they didn't finish. He made the clay, he put slip on it, and then it was never refired. Over on the right-hand side, it was refired, and it's yellow. And some of the extant modern slipwares are elaborate and colorful. They have names, they have flowers and designs. And Hinds is simple. His slipware is simple and two color. Like this. You see, there's a rim piece up here. It's a loop. Here's dots placed along. Here's another one with dots. Just very simple. Decorative, but simple. And here's some other pieces with kind of loops, loop-de-loops. And there's a bunch more slip wear and in size. You see this one here has the, as it was being turned, he had some sort of device maybe, or some way of scraping two lines in it. If y'all have any questions, feel free to sing out. There's another one of those things. Now, the really intriguing thing is this thin black incised ware. It's thin. It's about 1/8 to 1/4 inch. It's incised. You can see where the where it's scraped, like he's taken a knife or a twig or something and made a circle. Looks like I don't know, could it be a flower? Could it be just a sun with rays? But it's thin, it's teacup-like, and we're thinking that it's maybe experimental, because we only found a few pieces. We've not found it anywhere else other than John Hinds. If you ever see it, let me know. Maybe onto something. And I'm wondering if, it's not an attempt at something stoneware-like in redware rather than stoneware. Something that you could have a little teacup. But we don't know that yet. And here's some more pieces of the black incised.
Doug, you want the handle up there?
Oh,
On
that's
the top, yeah, that's not really incised, but it's got the same glaze as the
Yeah.
incised stuff, so we know that they went together. We just never could find enough to put a whole piece together
Yeah.
and figure out for sure exactly what it was.
And here's one of those rays that shot out. I think that's the same piece.
Question, Doug?
Was that?
I have a question.
Oh,
Was his house near this kiln? Did he live there?
yes, I believe so.
Okay, because my question is, all these pieces, were they rejects or stuff that broke while they were cooking and they were just thrown away? Or was this stuff he made, used, and when they broke in his home use, he threw them out in the backyard or something?
There are two cellar holes at the Hinds site. I'm sorry, there was a wall and two cellar holes, one on each side. On the one side, on the side with the kiln, I think obviously is the potter's shop, where he would have had his wheel, where he would have dried his clay. The other side is, I think, where he lived, or somebody lived. We found some domestic artifacts there, some metal, some over there, and you'll see.
So where were all these pieces found? Were they found in his house or in the
No,
kiln?
they were found by the kiln.
Okay.
We didn't do anything with the domestic side.
Right.
We were confined to the kiln side.
Yeah, so all of the artifacts that you're gonna see in the pictures, all the sherds and stuff, and everything that's on the table here was found right at the kiln site.
Yeah.
It was not near the house at all, so we know he was making all of that.
So you think, did he drop them and break them and that's why they were there? Or were they
Yeah,
rejects?
a
Or
lot of stuff is either rejects, things from a kiln collapse. Kilns were known to, stacks were known to fall down during
Okay.
the firing process, and they would either break or get so distorted. They didn't, take them away somewhere. They just dragged them out, threw them off to the side, and that's why there were some waster piles that we ran into. But you're handling so many different pots also.
Sure.
You're bound to drop one once in a while, it breaks. You need the sherds there, they get kicked aside. So they're all around the kiln. And Yeah, everything that you'll see is definitely not his use, but his manufacture.
It's also known as frustration.
Yeah.
Was the clay found naturally? Did they build the kiln there because there was natural clay? Or did they bring clay in?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Which we don't have the answer to.
Yeah,
We never found a clay deposit. We did do a little looking in the area, and we never saw any clay deposits, and we don't know of a reference to any. We'd be happy to, if somebody knew of has a reference to a clay deposit in that area, we'd like to know about it.
I know that there was
Era is
a
Sturbridge.
brick factory in Brimfield,
Yes,
and that they had found in Brimfield sites in the town that there was suitable clay for making bricks much later than this. But
Yeah.
I just wondered if there was a clay source in Holland.
yeah.
we don't know of one. We do know that there also was a brick manufactory in Holland at one time, but not adjacent to this. But who knows? We don't know if he used the same clay deposit and trucked it in or carted it in, or it was, there are some low-lying areas near the kiln site where there could be clay that's just hasn't been rediscovered, that's all. We don't know. There are no records, so.
This house, was it a residence?
There was a residence
Part of
there.
it, there was a kiln, and then there was a building or a foundation next to it?
Well, there were two cellar holes. There were two foundations. And
And a well.
And the well.
And a well, yes. And I think something like a corn crib. But that's stretching my memory. These are items that came from the domestic side of the wall. And you can recognize, I think, the what was it, a cauldron cooking pot. And this is a knife blade. And this is something that looks like it would screw in or nail into something, and then something else would fit into there.
Door lock.
Yeah, something like that, or maybe a hanger, or who knows? Maybe someday we will. This is a piece of charcoal, and it really doesn't belong there because it wasn't domestic. It wasn't on the domestic side; it was on the kiln side. But it is charcoal, and we have some more charcoal on the table. Yeah. Like, what would you think? Flour? Maybe it reminds me of the first or second graders' picture of the sun. You know?
No, it's carved into it. It's inside.
And domestic artifacts. And here's a bibliography, some books. Probably the most important book is Early New England Potters and Their Wares from Laura Woodside Watkins, Loverling's book on the history of Holland, John Worrell with other people put together this domestic pottery of the northeastern United States. I think that should be states. It's another very good book. And the one by Justin Thomas that I'm currently reading, The Dawn of Independence and the Death of an Industry, on the Charlestown Potters. Then some web resources. Family Search. I don't know if anybody does family history. Family Search has recently pioneered some software that will read the handwriting on the deeds, on the records, and read that so they become text that you can search.
be careful with it though, because there are lots of transcription errors. The old style script
Yep.
gets really messed up when you're asking a computer to transcribe it.
And what they have the, I wish I had a slide of it, but they have the original, the scan of the original document and the translation of it, so you can compare those two. But it really made it quite a difference between having to go to Springfield to look at deeds and to sit at your computer and look at deeds. And I'm looking forward to their doing more. But that's the web address for that. John Worrell has an article in Industrial Archeology for New England. Has a great article on the John Hinds pottery kiln. There's a John Hinds, the Hindsight Facebook group in Facebook, oddly enough. And then Old Sturbridge Village. And that, as they say, is history.
One of the things that we'd be very interested in, if you, obviously people interested in history, if any of you have any records of general store purchases, we'd be very interested if you would look through them and look at the pottery that was being bought and see if there is a reference somewhere to John Hinds selling pottery, or if you just have records of pottery being purchased, we'd be interested in maybe getting a copy of that. It would help us a great deal. Is in the back?
Yeah, I got a question. The earlier shot you showed the base of the kiln, I assume that was local field stone, the base?
Yes.
Was the kiln itself made of bricks?
Yes, as far as we can tell, we found many, many bricks.
That was my next question. I said, there should be a ton of bricks if they're just abandoned or fell in, but...
There was more than a ton. I can tell you, we moved a lot, and there's still a lot up there. The more interesting pieces went to Old Sturbridge Village during the dig. We did dig there for 3 years and uncovered a lot of stuff, and it's now in their archives. We'd like to obviously thank them for allowing us to use some of the materials. Some of the pictures that we took were from artifacts out of the collection. I would also like to thank Norcross, who now owns the property that the Hinds site is on, for allowing us to go back up there this year. And you saw the kiln site from this year. Well, that's not what it looked like 6 months ago. It was covered with 40 years of accumulation of dirt and grass and little plants growing. And they allowed us to go up there and reclaim that kiln base, clear it off. Most of the pottery sherds that are up here on the table were recovered this year. And you're welcome to come and look at them. The ones on this side over here were from the original Old Sturbridge Village dig.
And this is just a fraction of what we dug up this
Yeah.
summer.
This will all be going back to Norcross, by the way, to be curated.
Norcross owns property in Holland?
Yes, they do. It used to be Howlett property, and it was split up, and some of it the town of Holland got, and some of it Norcross got.
And what road is that?
It's not off a road. You can get to it off of Stafford Road. Part of that new walking trail that they put in goes in the general area, but that's the town side.
Do you know where the pottery was in Broomfield?
I do not personally. No, I do not. Yes.
Just a question, 2 questions. When you said that pottery is sometimes jobbed, they sent their pottery marked or unmarked to another person to sell?
As far as I know, potters didn't mark their wares.
No, and I was going to say, how would you know, how would I know if I found some of his pottery intact?
You'd have to compare other known pieces and designs, of which many potters made similar things. The only very distinct thing we know of is this incised pottery. And we have 3 very small pieces. If you want to see some of it up here, that you're welcome to come take a look at. The other pieces that you see the pictures of are in the collection at Old Sturbridge Village, and those are older pictures. Those were actually taken during the dig on a tree stump. The pottery sherds actually can't be located right at this time, so.
It must have been very exciting
It
to
was.
find it.
It was. Michael? Is that you? Yes? Question over there?
Not really, but
Back here?
Yeah,
Back there.
where did they source the glaze? Was it homemade, or
I would assume so at the time.
what would they have used? I mean,
Couldn't tell you, I'm not an authority on pottery. I can't answer that question, I don't know what the glaze was made of. I know there was liquid clay in it to give it the base, but I don't know what else was mixed in it. I assume it was just water and clay, but I'm not sure. I thought I saw another hand up there. Yes,
So no, it's real lead.
Now, these are fairly large kilns that are built.
Yes.
I'm assuming they are commercial grade kilns. What about the small farmers who would do this just on the side? How would they, do what they
it
have
has to be
do?
kind of in the same way, because it's gotta be fired, so it's gotta be inside something, you can't just do it in an open fire, so it would be a kiln, I imagine, on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
Like
Would
maybe
they-
that unknown one that was in Woodstock, we don't know whose that was.
You
But
know,
that was
all
a
of this.
significantly smaller one.
Do you know if small farmers would take their unfinished pottery and bring it to them to be?
It would be hard to transport them because they're not very sturdy. Unfired clay is very fragile.
And you have to remember that, it's like Tupperware, it's cheap. And if John Hinds were here, he would wonder what the big deal is. I mean, it's just Tupperware, it's stuff that you throw out. And, around old cellar holes, you'll find redware, any old house, I think, you'd find redware if you dig far enough. And I wanted to say about the bricks. Bricks tended to be taken and reused. If you pull down a kiln, you've got all these bricks, you might as well build something with it. Yankee ingenuity,
Were there no devices found as far as pottery, like the wheels are concerned, like the
No.
stones, round stones, great stones?
Not at our site, not at the Hinds site. I don't know if the Kirby Brooks
I don't know.
wheel was found.
The site has not been fully excavated. That would take a significantly greater amount of time than we had available to us. We worked it for 3 years, but it was like 2 weeks at a time for 3 years. So it was a very small area around the kiln that was actually excavated. There were some other indications of another building or a lean-to or something that were there that never got explored, that, if some university had an interest in an archaeology program and wanted to do a field school, they could see Norcross and talk to them about doing that. It would be a great site to be fully explored. There's a lot more there that could be explored, and a lot of questions still to be answered.
Who discovered it?
Doug and I.
Really?
Yeah.
And how did you, tell us about that.
Well, it's kind of a long story. I used to be the pastor of the church in Holland back in 81 to 85, something like that. And me and another friend, being in a new place, I'm from Oklahoma. And the state is, Massachusetts is way older than Oklahoma. And I've lived in houses that were way older than Oklahoma. So, and I'm interested in history, so, I would go for walks in the woods and find these cellar holes. And I found one, unfortunately it wasn't in the woods, it was next to a road across the street from the owner. And me and another guy were finding bottles and all this interesting stuff. But the owner of the house came over and asked what we were doing and who we were. And I had, I still feel it when I had to tell him that I was the pastor of that church in Holland. And I thought, man, this is great. You know, at the time there were scandals in ministries and televangelists and stuff. But you know, and I had to have a scandal over pottery, bottle hunting. You know, so I decided, you know, I'd go looking in the woods, you know, away from other people. So Mike and I went out there, and the rest is history.
Did you get the help from the village at some point?
Yeah, we took the kiln furniture, these pieces of kiln furniture, and John Worrell recognized it as kiln furniture, and it's the kind of stuff that you would only use in a kiln. It couldn't have been just dropped and broken. And so he went out and looked at it and found that there was a kiln there.
So the furniture was actually used at the kiln?
Oh, yes, yes it was.
Placed in during the
Yeah.
firing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
You can come up here after and look at the stuff that we've got on display, and you see the glaze and stuff on it, and the marks on where the rims were, and things like that. Yeah.
There was a later potter in the East Brookfield around Lake Lashway. Are you familiar with that, or?
No, I'm not.
No.
I think it's down where Rick Hamlin is a modern potter.
Yeah, he's over in Warren.
He was a warrior.
Okay.
And he's interested in the.
He actually had worked on the Hinds side.
Oh, he did?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
All right, we have to wrap up.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Mike and Doug for their presentation. Please come up. Pieces they have up here, they're interesting, and thank you.
You're welcome. It's our pleasure.
Yeah, question.
That was from the original town. They've misplaced it. It's there somewhere. Nobody's watching over it. Nice job.
That's like my desk.
It looked like you might use a nail to put it
That's the one of all the
That's good.